If you grew up anytime in the past 50 years, you've probably heard of Arthur. The titular aardvark, created by Mark Brown, debuted in his first book, Arthur's Nose, in 1976. It wasn't until 1996 that Arthur truly exploded into a mini-media empire with the debut of its PBS animated series that has gone on to air in 100 countries around the world. Along with a plethora of merchandise, home video releases, and promotional partners, Arthur has also made a big splash in video games. The Learning Company released a wide variety of computer software based around Arthur. There were also 2 console games released in 2000. Today I'll be delving into the making of the first of those games, Arthur's Absolutely Fun Day for Game Boy Color. I'll also explore its cancelled sequel, Arthur's Sports Challenge, a game that was virtually unheard of until now. I interviewed lead developer Ed Magnin, owner of Magnin & Associates, to get the inside scoop on these 2 games and gain insight on licensed game development in the early 2000s. As a personal note, Arthur's Absolutely Fun Day holds a special place in my heart. It was in fact my first video game. I got it for Christmas with a Kiwi Green Game Boy Color in 2000. It meant a lot to me being able to learn how this game got made. I hope you enjoy.
And now, back to Arthur!
Ed Magnin has a long history in game development. His video game career began with working on the Apple II version of Sid Meier's Pirates. Magnin himself has a background in education, specifically working with deaf children, that heavily informed designing easy-to-understand games for young kids. Released September 7, 2000, Arthur's Absolutely Fun Day was published by The Learning Company, at that point a subsidiary of Mattel, and was developed in a short time frame, roughly 4 to 6 months, standard at the time for a licensed title on Game Boy. The lead time for Game Boy games was quite long, as cartridges were ordered well in advance. A game would have to be done by around July in order to be ready for Christmas.
But they're always racing, so if you want to get a game out for Christmas, which is when everybody wants to get it, you got to start with Nintendo. You got to get it done in July.
Cartridges themselves were expensive, which is why password saves were so common.
It may have been like a $6 to $10 cartridge. I know that if you put a battery in it, it might have added $1 or $2 at the most.
For Arthur, the save system utilized a school bus, which used images of characters rather than letters, making it simpler for children who may not read or read very well.
They could put in 3 characters in the window or something without having to remember that this character's first and this character's second, this one's third. If you remember that, you can get back to that level again.
I didn't point this out to Ed, but DW's inclusion on the bus is a bit of an anachronism, as she went to a separate preschool. You know we can't all be perfect.
Oh, it's hard having a sister who's perfect. You'll get used to it.
In total, 5 people worked on development of Arthur's Absolutely Fun Day. Mark Huber, a student of Ed Magnin, worked with him on programming and design.
He was one of my students and he was sharp, and so he did an internship with us, and he got paid, of course. We'd divide up some of the tasks, and maybe he'd work on one of the activities, I'd work on another. Sometimes we'd work on them together.
Art was handled by another student, Brett Nunomia. Having previously attended West Point and competed as a gymnast, he got his start in computer graphics by designing software to model gymnastics moves. The wide spectrum of colors in Absolutely Fun Day becomes even more impressive when you learn he was colorblind.
And then I found out later that the poor guy was colorblind, but his wife was an optometrist. She helped him. He would look at a pixel and see how much red, green, and blue were in it and decide that way, and then he'd ask his wife if it looked good.
Testing was done internally by Sean Soper, another student of Magnin. Music was composed by Tommy Tallarico, a longtime friend of Ed, who had gotten his start in game music through Magnin for Prince of Persia on Game Boy.
I gave him his first game. It was one of the earlier ones I did.
They have remained friends since, with Ed even sitting with Tommy while he signed autographs after a performance of his video game's live symphony.
I sit next to him, and I'm autographing. Daughter calls up, and she says, "Where's Dad?" And, "Oh, he's busy. He's autographing." Who wants his autograph?
The Learning Company was largely hands-off, besides creating the manual and handling the business end of things. The opening credit, Roller Coaster, was quite unique for a game like this and included many names from the Learning Company. Magnin had a few thoughts on who actually should have been included from the Learning Company.
The guy they should put in is the guy that got my checks ready.
The Learning Company did make some interesting requests, including feedback on a pancake cooking minigame where pancakes would burn if left on the stove too long.
The Learning Company complained that the kids were trying to burn the pancakes. And I said, well, who cares if they're having fun?
When it came to dictating how the Arthur license could be used, Arthur creator Mark Brown authorized his son, Tolan Brown, to act on his behalf.
With a case of a licensed character, you're going to be going back and forth with the person whose license it is. In this case, Mark Brown, and then his son, Tolan, we were in contact with him. My son's authorized, you can talk to him about, you can send him screenshots and this and that. So we ended up working more with him and not having to bother the dad.
Mark and Tolan were fairly loose with the license, especially in comparison to mega corporations like Disney or McDonald's, that would provide guideline Bibles for how to use their IP.
They didn't think they needed to do all that stuff. It was kind of like you suggest something to them, you write up a design, they approve the design.
The Magnan and Associates team was only vaguely familiar with Arthur. They were shared a few episodes of the show, which helped inform the design, including the map cursor.
We wanted something to show what you're over, and then we wanted it to get excited with the thing around the ring like you're talking about.
The story, directly from the manual, has Arthur completing various activities around Elwood City in order to earn gold stars. Earn enough and you get to visit the amusement park Wonder World.
And he's going to play with me every day and take me to Ponyland.
No, he's not. He's gonna take me to Wonder World.
Wonder World came with its own bonus activities that each have no ending. They were meant to simply act as a reward to players. The unreleased sequel, Arthur's Sports Challenge, was nearly complete when it was cancelled. Prior to the upload of this video, no information about it existed online other than a single listing of the title of the game on IGN. There wasn't an exact reason given to Ed Magnan as to why it was cancelled. Its cancellation very well could have stemmed from Mattel's woes with its acquisition of the Learning Company.
Macroeconomics. I love that. What is it again?
The Learning Company had been purchased by Mattel in 1999 for $3.8 billion in stock. A massive debacle followed, with Mattel taking a large loss and their stock value plummeting. On September 30th, 2000, only 23 days after the release of Arthur's Absolutely Fun Day, Mattel announced private equity firm Gorse Technology Group would take control of the Learning Company in exchange of a small share of any profits made on it in the future. There also seemed to be a trickle down of issues at the company to the development of its sequel.
At the beginning of the project was the producer. She said, I got to get this approved, but we want you to start. So I start, and then I sent her an invoice, and then I called up to ask where the check was. So I sent her the second milestone, and now I have been paid for 2 of them. It says, well, you understand that we don't have an agreement, and if I don't get my managers to approve this, I can't pay you, and we don't have a contract. I said, no, we have a contract. I said, we have an oral agreement. I said, you agreed to pay me so much. We discussed the terms. We wrote down a description of what it was. You approved that description, and you've been directing me. You've been telling me what you wanted changed. I sent her milestone 1, and can you change this to green instead of red? And can you do this? I said, you've been directing me. I said, and yet you're not responsible for paying me for that?
Most likely, by the time the game was canned, Mattel just wanted to wash its hands of anything involving the prior acquisition. Thanks to design documents Ed shared with me, we have a good look at what was planned. The premise was very similar to its predecessor. Rather than Arthur trying to earn free admission to an amusement park, instead it was to Skate-O-Rama. Replacing the gold stars from its predecessor were gold medals. Similarly, there were to be 10 main activities. They were archery, soccer shootout, rock climbing, rope climb, batting practice, trampoline, swim race, basketball free throw, handball, football passing. Once enough medals had been earned, the Skate-O-Rama was unlocked with 5 additional activities: skateboard halfpipe, bicycle halfpipe, inline skates halfpipe, scooter slalom course, and downhill dirt biking jumping course. The development timeline shows submission to Nintendo for approval was planned for June 15, 2001, with the progress log showing the latest date before cancellation as April 6, 2001. At cancellation, all the main activities were either playable or completed. 3 of the bonus games were also completed, while the remaining 2 had yet to have been started. At this point, there are no known copies of Arthur's Sports Challenge in existence. That concludes the story of the 2 Arthur Game Boy Color games. One that was released, and one that could have been. A very special thank you to Ed Magnan for generously giving me his time to interview him. And of course,
Viewers like you. Thank you.